well, here's what we're going to do then. So we are just going to continue on from what we were talking about this morning, and really jumping into now how do we get business going and all of those kinds of things. So any questions though before we get going? Last chance. All right, I guess not. Philip was going to get the laugh track going for me so that we could at least have some laughing going on, but we'll see. All right. Well, so here's what we're going to do. So where we left off is we were talking about connect, create value, and close. There's only 5 ways in the English language that you can close, and it's what time, which time, how soon, when, and where. So what we're going to do now is we are going to jump into, and in fact, I just realized I probably need to bring this screen down for these guys that are here with me to be able to see what we're going to do next. Because what we're going to do next is I am going to go through and I'm going to show you some stuff first about from the National Association of Realtors. So the National Association of Realtors does a survey of home buyers and sellers every year. So every year they go out and survey the home buyers and sellers to get feedback as far as just all kinds of stuff. And so I'm going to show you one of the reports that that they have put out. So let me get my screen pulled up here so you guys can see it. All right. So I've got that for you guys. Now I got to get it turned on here for these guys that are here with me in the room. Okay, as that's coming up, I'm going to shut off the lights here. All right, so what you are looking at now is this is the survey that was done by the National Association of Realtors. So every year they go out and do a survey of home buyers and sellers, and they ask them a number of questions, and as part of that, then they compile it and release it for the agents. Now, what you're looking at here, which on our screen here is really blurry. Hope it's not blurry for you guys on Zoom. Is it blurry? A little bit. Oh, I don't know why. It should not be. But that's okay. You'll be able to see enough and I'll explain it enough. But here's what I want you to understand. So every July, they put together this survey and they send it out to the home buyers and sellers. And they use the tax data as a way to send this report out. So they go compile people who have bought or sold from tax records. They send them surveys. And the reason they use tax records instead of the MLS is because it then includes for sale by owners. They send it out to them. They request them to fill out the survey and send it back. From July until about September. So right now they are working on the 2020 where they're trying to get people to respond. About September-ish, they then get all of these surveys compiled. And then they will release it in November for us to use. So what you're looking at, this one here shows that it's the 2018. And the reason I'm using the 2018 on this is because in 2019, they didn't have this specific report. So everything I'm going to show you is actually going to be the 2019 with the exception of this one. Now, let me explain what you're looking at and why I'm even showing it to you. Because here's what happens is remember we talked about there's anecdotal data and empirical data. And our business is full of anecdotal data, stories that we tell. Well, this is an example of that. Now, one of the things you are going to hear, if you haven't heard yet, but you're going to hear people say to you something along the lines of this. When it comes to for sale by owners, you're going to hear somewhere between 80 and 98% that they all end up listing. The 80 to 98% of all for sale by owners list. Well, this is another example of data that has been passed on from person to person, and we all regurgitate it as if it's true, but it's not true. And I'm going to prove it to you. So remember I said there's anecdotal and empirical. The anecdotal is 80 to 98% of all for sale by owners list is what you're going to hear. You'll hear numbers between 80 and 98. The most common you're going to hear is either 80, 88, or 98. Well, where that came from actually is this report you're looking at right here. So what this report is showing you when you look at this is showing the number of the sales, or the percentage of the sales. This line here is the ones that used an agent to sell their home. Down here is the blue line is the people who sold their home for sale by owner, and this other one is just other, which just, we don't know what that means. I don't know how they sold it, but they didn't sell it. Let's see. Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. Let me just try starting it as a slideshow and we'll see. That does make it better. Thank you for point. Well, a little bit, I guess.
That sounds still blurry. Larger.
Yeah. It actually does look a little bit better, not a lot. But anyway, okay. So here's what happens. So let me make sure you understand. You are going to hear people, you're going to hear trainers out there say to you, everybody knows 80% or 88% or 98% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home. Well, this is where they're getting it from, but that is not what this chart says. So if you look, kind of the most common number here in the last number of years is 88%. But what that's saying is 88% of all the sales that took place were using an agent. That doesn't, because it's in the for sale by owner category, people think that that's saying 88% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home, but that's not what this says. What this says is actually for 2018, 91% of the sales that took place were done with an agent. And only 7% of the sales that took place were for sale by owner. But here's why I want you to see that. There, 7% in 2018, 7% of all the sales that took place were a for sale by owner. Which what that means is they can do it. They can sell their home on their own, and they do. And in fact, if you look back here, you go back to this one here, back in 1985, 21%, basically 1 out of every 5 homes that sold in 1985 was a for sale by owner. I mean, that's a little scary to me, actually. Like, that back then, holy cow, like they probably really had a rough time. So when we think it's tough now to get a for sale by owner to list, man, be glad you weren't selling back here in the mid 80s, because looks like it was even worse there. But that's what this is saying. Now, the reason I bring it up is just re-emphasizing the anecdotal versus empirical. Now, so here's what I'm saying to you. When you hear somebody say this, because you're going to hear somebody say, according to NAR, 80% or 88% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home. What I want you to do is to say, hey, do you have a copy of that shows from NAR? Because it doesn't exist, is what I'm telling you. Now, I did that once with a guy. We had a different company that I was with. We had a trainer come into town, and he was in a class like we're doing right now, and he said, everybody knows 88% of all for sale by owners end up listing their home, according to the National Association of Realtors. So on a break, I went up to him and I said, hey, I have tried to find a copy of that where it says that 88% list. Do you have a copy of it? And he said, oh, I don't have it with me, but I do back home in Boston. And I said, great. Would you mind sending it to me? Here's my business card. He said, yep, great. I'll send it to you. He never sent it to me. And as part of the training he had done, he had said, hey, follow me on Facebook, which I had done. So after a couple of weeks of not getting it, I went onto Facebook and sent him a private message and just said, hey, you were going to send me that survey. Will you do that? And he wrote back, said, oh yeah, sorry, I'll get it for you. I never got it. About a month later on Facebook, he put something about everybody knows, according to NAR, 88% of all for sale by owners list their home. So I just put a comment on his post that said that and said, hey, you were going to send me the report and you never sent it to me. He deleted my comment. So here's what I know. It doesn't exist. I have bought this report for many, many years, and I've never seen it show 88% of all for sale by owners list. It doesn't exist. Where that comes from, though, is I think people look at this and misinterpret it. All right, next. This is the 2019 version of what we just looked at. So essentially, the reason I threw the other one in there is because I liked that format better than this one. But in 2019, they did away with the old format and put it this way instead. You can see it's got essentially the same information, but it doesn't only goes back to 2003 versus into the 80s, which I kind of liked showing, which is why I showed that. But just so you see the difference, in 2019, it dropped from 91% agent assisted to 89 and increased by 1% here to 8%, which still is not that much. But I just want you to see it so that you can know, like sometimes agents will approach for sale by owners from the standpoint of, like, you're an idiot for trying to sell it on your own and you're not going to be able to do it. Well, I just want you to see they can do it. The other thing to notice on here, though, is of the 8% who sold for sale by owner, 5% knew the buyer. So if you stop and think about that, what are the chances you're going to get in the middle of that transaction? If a seller is selling it to somebody they know? Probably not. So really, now to some extent, I want you to see that, but I also want you to realize of the 8% of for sale by owners, the ones that actually really sold it on their own, where they didn't know the buyer, it was 3% of all the transactions that are out there. So it's very small when you look at it that way. If you look at it in terms of, yeah, 8% did, but 5% of those, of the 8, knew the buyer. So, that's somebody selling it to their kid or their best friend or whatever. All right. Next thing that I want you to see is this. Now, in terms of for sale by owners, this is what I want you to understand on this. And let me make sure I explain the chart really well to you. What this is showing here is the median selling price. So let me explain that, because I know a lot of times there are people who misunderstand the difference between median and average. Average would be to take all of our income and then divide it by the number of us that there are, and that would tell us what our average income is. Well, if one of us here made $100 million last year, and we took 100 million plus all the rest of our incomes and then divided it by however many of us are here right now, 15 people, something like that, that would be very misleading, because the person making $100 million would totally raise that average up. Instead, if we said we're going to look at our median income, that would then get rid of the outliers and get us more to a true picture of it. So there are times that average makes sense, but there are times that median makes sense. And this is a scenario where we want to see median, because sometimes if somebody sold their home for sale by owner and they sold it for $85 million or $100 million, something like that would skew it. Now, what are the chances of that happening? Probably not real good, but it also could happen. One actor selling their house to another one, or sports star or something. But that could skew the numbers a little bit. So as a result, we're doing the median. So the median is more in the middle. So now if you look at this, you'll notice the median selling price for all sellers across the country is $275,000. If you then take that and jump over to all for sale by owners, it goes to $200,000. Well, if they knew the buyer, their median price was $180. If they didn't, it was $251, which again, I think makes sense, because if I'm selling the home to my son, I'm probably giving him a pretty good deal on it, which is what this shows. When they know the buyer, they're going to give them a pretty good deal. Well, if they didn't know the buyer, they'll look at what the median price is $251. If you look at all agent assisted, it's $280,000. If you look at agent assisted only, it's $282,000. And if you look at people who tried to go for sale by owner first, but then used an agent, look at what it was, $261. Now, here's the reason I'm showing you guys this report. What I want you to see, somebody tell me, although I have a general idea, what is the percentage difference between 282 and 251? Or even if you did 280 and 251? I mean, it's essentially a little over 10%. It's 10 or 11%, right? It's probably close to 11% would be my guess. Now, let me ask you this question. Why does somebody sell their home for sale by owner?
It's the same money, they think.
Because they think they're going to save the commission, which is how much?
3%.
5%.
Never mind.
6%?
Yeah, 6%. So hold on. They're wanting to save 6%, But if you look at this chart, it costs them like 11%. Do you see a problem with that? Why do you think that happens? Because what this is saying is if you do it for sale by owner, you are going to end up with about 11% than if you used an agent. So why would that happen? Why would across the country as median prices, are they going to end up losing money?
Maybe because it becomes more difficult, so they end up taking less just to kind of get through the process.
Because they don't have a way to market the property like we do.
Okay, good. So
they would let emotion involved in their transaction as well.
Good,
instead
yeah.
of just doing empirical data.
Yeah, so you got the emotions that come into it. That's good. Let me pull up. I got to see what chats we got going on here. Yeah, they don't know how to market and sell. Looks like an opportunity, not a problem. Good. Yeah, good. Why is it showing it up right there? I don't understand that. Okay. Yeah, so here's what I think ends up happening with this is this is my opinion. Now, and I'll tell you this is all anecdotal. This is not empirical what I'm about to share with you, okay? But it's what I believe, and it's the only thing that would make sense to me. Stop and ask yourself the question, who typically is going to be the buyer of a for sale by owner? And maybe the better way to say it, let me ask it differently. Well, you can answer it that
Somebody
way.
who needs a loan.
Someone that needs a loan? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. But let me ask it differently. Who is not going to go buy a for sale by owner? What type of a buyer is not going to go buy a for sale by owner?
An
Strangers?
buyer.
Did you say strangers?
Yeah, I said strangers, like people that don't know the owner of the property, because typically they like, I want to go with an agent who knows what they're doing
Yeah,
from
good.
the buyer side.
Good. And so what type of a buyer is going to go buy without an agent then?
All cash.
Friends,
Okay, potentially all cash,
Family?
friends.
those who can't go out and get like pre-qualified or get a good loan, they would go and try to get a home
Okay.
sold by owners so they can make a deal.
Okay, good. Let me ask it to you this way. Is a first-time home buyer, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, going to go and are they going to go out and buy a for sale by owner? First-time
No.
home buyer? And why?
Because they don't have any experience. They don't know what they're doing.
Well, they can still get an agent and go buy it for sale by owner home.
Absolutely, they can, no question. But so typically though, because how much is it going to cost to a person to go buy a, for the first time home buyer, somebody to use a buyer's agent, how much does it cost them?
Nothing.
Yeah, essentially nothing, right? So why would you not, if you're a buyer of a home, why would you not use an agent?
Yeah.
And Loyanne's answered it basically is what she said in the comments is experienced. Meaning typically the person who's going to go buy a for sale by owner for the most part is going to be an experienced buyer. And an experienced buyer is going to go buy a for sale by owner for what reason?
Investment?
Maybe, but
Save money.
to save the commission. Because ultimately what that experienced buyer is going to go to the for sale by owner and say, hey, since you're not having to pay a commission,
Take it off the top.
I want to take some money off the top of what your price is since you don't have to pay a commission. And now they've already negotiated that seller down. Now here's the other thing and why I've come to this reasoning. I was sick one time, this is many years ago. I was sick and I just couldn't sleep at night. So I'm up watching TV and I'm just kind of flipping through the channels and I come across one that's about real estate investing. Well, as a realtor, I'm of course interested. I wonder what they're talking about. So I sit and watch it. And here's what they said. Their recommendation was, we're going to teach you how to go out and buy properties at a discount. And here's one of the ways that they recommended you do it, is you go find a for sale by owner and go offer them basically 3 or 6% less because they're not having to pay a commission. So go and get it for less. Now that you've gotten them to agree to it for less, now what you do is you go and do your due diligence, you do your inspections, and as part of doing your inspections, you go back and tell them, look at all these problems. Now, because if any of you guys have ever seen a home inspection, I don't care what house it is, when you look at that home inspection report, it almost feels like the house is going to fall down and like it's a piece of junk. So as a result of that, they're saying now go use that to your advantage to the for sale by owners. Look at all this work I'm going to have to do. Look at all this stuff that needs to be done on the home. I need you to get to reduce the price. And so what ends up happening is they then negotiate and get price reductions. Because here's why. The other thing they said to do is you go and get this property so that, and wait as long as you can through the due diligence time frame so that the seller has already made all these other plans of moving on, so that if the buyer comes and bails on them, it kind of puts the seller in a bad position to where they end up getting a really good deal on it. So that's why I think this happens, of why we see this disparity between it. So now with that in mind, we're going to come back and I'll talk more about the for sale by owner stuff in just a little bit. But I just want to make sure you see that. So now let's go to the next piece of this. This one, what you're looking at is the method used to find a real estate agent by first time or repeat sellers. So what you're looking at now is how do the sellers choose an agent that they're going to list their home with? Now, as you look at that, what stands out to you when you look at that? And you guys that are here, if you need to get up closer to see the screen, you can.
Majority of it is referred to by friend, neighbor, or relative.
Perfect. The number one way to find a seller is through your SOI. So the class we talked about yesterday, making sure that you are working your sphere of influence is 39% of the time. 27% of the time is they use the agent previously. See, in my mind, you add those two together is your SOI. So essentially, we're saying 66% of the time, the way that somebody is going to choose their agent is based on being a friend, neighbor, or relative, or a referral from them, or they used the agent before. Now, what do you notice after that?
It drops dramatically, pretty much. It's just kind of either prospecting or just marketing, your internet marketing and open houses and stuff like that.
Yeah, good. And look at the third best way to get a seller, other. I wish I knew what that was, other, because I would recommend go do a lot of that. Because 10% of the time, that's how they're choosing is other. So whatever that is, yeah, it's a dice roll. I like that. Yeah, essentially, look at that. Notice how it drops off. So here's the thing is, well, actually, let's look at the buyers first, and then I'll say what I was going to say. So now that's the seller. Now let's see how they choose their buyer. Okay, so how did buyers choose their agent? And what do you notice? Same thing. 41% of the time, it's a friend, neighbor, or relative, or a referral, and 12% they use the agent before. So 53% of the time, over 50% of the time, the way that the person is going to choose their agent is by a referral or is a friend, neighbor, or relative. So if you're not working your sphere of influence, and if I didn't convince you yesterday to do it, hopefully this does. Because you got to go create that SOI or use it if you haven't. And then again, the third best way is other, which again, I don't know what that is. But then after that, notice it just drops off. It's almost like it almost doesn't matter. After that, I like the way Luann said it's a dice roll. The one thing I have to point out, so get the laugh track ready. You got it? Is this. Is notice on this right here where it shows, oops, I got to move this out of the way. Right here it shows first-time buyers. The use the agent previously. 2% of the time, a first-time buyer used the agent previously.
How's that work?
That's what I would like to know. Like it's kind of, to me, that's, I don't know how that works. How do you be a first-time home buyer but you use the agent previously? I don't get it. But there we go. Phil got the laugh track for me. Good job. So Jordan's saying they inherited the home and then sold it. Okay, but that's not the buyer though. That would be as a first-time seller.
Maybe the agent was the agent for their parents.
Yeah, that could be. That's probably what they are. Is they're saying it's a family friend, and this is who our family uses. That could be. I don't know. Anyway, not that it matters. I always just think that's interesting. All right, that's what I've got for you on that. Okay, so now let me get all this closed down and lights back on. Put the screen back up. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that so that you can see how important it is that you're working your sphere of influence, because if you are not working your sphere of influence, you can see you're missing out on a ton of business. Remember I told you guys the other day, if you're making less than $100,000 a year in this business, you have gotten business falling through the cracks. You're missing out on deals that are right there for the taking, but you're missing them. And that's part of how that ends up happening. All right. Let me erase all this from this morning. Here's what we're going to do. So now, what I'm going to do is have you guys give to me I want you to share with me ways that we're going to create 3 columns of ways that we can generate business. And then from there, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about how to do them effectively. So just start giving to me ways that we could generate business. Okay, so friends. So I'm going to put that one, I'm going to say SOI for friends. So that's one of the columns. Give me another way we could generate business.
Expireds and for sale by owner.
Okay, so for sale by owners, expired. Good. How else? So I see Jordan said social media. So here's our 3 columns. What else? How else can we do?
Cold calling.
Okay, cold calling. Now, every time that one comes up, I always have to say, from a company protection standpoint, make sure if you're cold calling that you check the do not call list and don't call people on the do not call list. All right, Andrew says geo leads. I'm gonna call that just listed. So I'm gonna put JLJS for just listed, just sold. But geo leads, so essentially just a geographic area calling around. Good. How else?
Door knocking.
Okay, door knocking. Okay, good. To some extent, that could be, we could say that's the just listed, just sold, but door knock. What else?
Mailers.
Good, yeah. I'm going to just say advertise. No, we'll do mailers. But then I'm going to also put in advertising since I just gave you that. Okay, what else?
Internet leads.
Okay, good. What else?
Going and talking to development companies, see if they're going to be building up like condos or something. You can outsell them.
Okay, so I like that. I'm gonna put it with cold calling because essentially that's what it is. Somebody said buy leads. I'm gonna just call that internet leads. If that's
How
okay.
about being part of like a community group?
Okay, so networking. I'm gonna put networking here in the middle. I'll explain that in a minute. What else? I can tell that we're in the middle of COVID, because usually there's one other one that you guys have not said that usually comes up pretty fast.
Open house.
There you go. Open houses. What else? The only other one I'm going to add, which I'm going to add 2 actually. Sign calls. And I'm going to put floor time, although I probably should quit putting this up here because I don't know how many offices do it anymore. Floor time essentially was if the phone rings at the office, that an agent gets the call, somebody calls and says, I want to buy a house, which Back in the day, those were really good leads, but doesn't happen too much anymore.
What about just listed?
Yeah, so I put up, I put
Oh,
ALJ, just listed, just sold. Sorry, I should have not shortened it, but yeah, just listed, just sold. All right, here's the question for you. As you look at these, what does so each of these columns, actually, let me stop for a second. This networking could go this way or that way, and SOI could go this way or that way as well, is why I put it in the middle, is because it kind of could go either direction. But as you look at these, so these two columns we're going to talk about, they both have advantages and disadvantages to them. What would you say the advantage is to working in this column over here, this for sale by owner, expired, cold calling, just listed, just sold, and door knocking?
You don't know the people.
Okay, so you don't know the people could be an advantage. Good. What else?
It's productive, or like, what do we categorize as indirect? So it's not just the non-productive stuff where you're just doing marketing and social media. It actually could lead to a potential appointment or a transaction.
Okay, and why? Why? I agree with you. Why do you say that? Why could it lead to that? And
Because they've already started the process. Whether they're making advancements or not, they've already started the process.
good, yeah, these two, the for sale by owner and expireds, have already been in the process. Good. So to some extent, we would know with the for sale by owner and expired. In fact, this is probably a good time to do this. Think of it this way. So I'm going to draw here. Oops, messed up here. Think of this as being, we've got these hurdles here. So think of it like in track. These are hurdles that you got to run and jump over, okay? Think of it this way. In essence, when we are trying to get a transaction, the first hurdle we've got to get over here is, does the person need to buy or sell? Okay? That's the first hurdle we've got to get over, is does the person need to buy or sell? The second hurdle we've got to get over is, will they use an agent? So will the person be willing to use an agent to buy or sell? And then the third hurdle that we have to get over is it going to be you? So think of it that way, is we've got to overcome these hurdles. So to some extent, what Sevana was saying, I think it was Sevana that said it, is the for sale by owner and the expired have already cleared this first hurdle. We know they want to buy or sell. Okay. In terms of the expired, we even know they were willing to use an agent. The only question with the expired is it going to be you? For sale by owner, they've cleared this wanting to buy or sell, but right now we know we got to get over are they willing to use an agent, and are they willing to have that agent be me, is the next one. A cold calling, just listed, just sold, we still have all three of those hurdles we got to get over, okay? Now, the other thing that I would say that this column has as an advantage to it is, or what they have in common, is this one is what I would call is active, meaning our prospecting is going to be actively done to that group. So what's the downside specifically? And when I say downside, doesn't necessarily mean negative, but what would be the downside to for sale by owner and expired? Working those.
If they had a bad experience with agents in the past, that's where they're.
Okay, good. Potentially could be that. Why else?
Probably have a shorter deadline for you to actually accomplish selling their home.
Okay, shorter deadline potentially. Okay, good. Why else?
They want more money. They want more
Okay, cool. The other one that's potentially a disadvantage for you, there's a lot more competition going after the for sale by owner and the expired than what is going to go after a just listed or a just sold or a door knock kind of a thing. Meaning your skill level has got to be higher if you're going to convert for sale by owners and expireds. Now, let's talk about this side. Over here on this side is what I would like to refer to as more of passive. Meaning, the people on this side, this list over here, you're actually waiting more for them to come to you. See, versus on the active, all of these, you're having to go to them. Over here, all of these, you're waiting for them to come to you. Now, there's an advantage and a disadvantage to that. So what's the advantage to that, waiting for someone to come to you?
Well, you know they're actually seeking you out.
Good, that's exactly right. The advantage to this is when they come, they're what I like to call hand raisers. Like the version of this passive over here is similar to what a for sale by owner is. Think of it, the for sale by owner goes and posts a sign in their front yard that says, I want to sell my house.
Right.
These ones over here essentially are raising their hand, the same as a for sale by owner does, saying, I want to buy a house or I want to sell, whatever it is here. So that's the advantage. What's the downside to that?
You have to wait.
You gotta wait. You can't wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm gonna hold an open house and I'm gonna talk to 50 people today. Because you don't know who's gonna show up. What if nobody shows up? See, that's the downside to this. Versus on this side, I could do on any of these and say, I'm gonna talk to 50 people today, and I could go find the for sale by owners, the expireds, all of these to talk to. This side, I'm just sitting there waiting. And maybe nobody shows up at all. But if they do, the good news is if they do show up, they're hand raisers, which is meaning they're saying, hey, I want to sell. All right, questions? All right, then. Here's what we're going to do then. What we're going to do next then is hopefully I have set the stage enough. So you guys tell me if I have not. But hopefully I've set the stage enough for you to where you have an understanding based on what we talked about this morning, that you understand the importance of working these and the importance of setting an appointment. You understand the importance of capturing the lead and getting them into your sphere of influence. You have an understanding that when you are prospecting, we have to connect, we have to create value, and we have to close. And hopefully you have the understanding of the way that we're going to connect is through us asking questions, repeating and affirming, using empathy, saying, hey, if I were you, I'd feel the same way. Hopefully you're good with all that. Any questions on any of those things? All right, I'm going to assume no then. I'm going to erase this then. Now we're going to get into talking about some of this stuff. So we've already hit on, and so let's kind of continue with the for sale by owner theme since that's where we were at. Let's talk about for sale by owners for a minute. Now, we've already hit on why are they trying to do it for sale by owner? To save the commission. Part of what you need to do of transitioning this. See, part of what we want to do is we want to get a level shift to take place with these people. And what I mean by a level shift is when on a for sale by owner, the reason they're trying to sell it by owner is because they think they're going to save the commission. Now, I've already proved to you through the NAR study that that is not always the case, that they end up saving the commission. In fact, it's possible they end up spending almost what they think they're saving, they end up losing an additional X amount of dollars on top. In addition to losing what they think they're saving, they're losing an additional amount on top. And we talked about why. So now, part of what you've got to do, though, is you have to, when you are approaching them, and you've got different ways you can go about doing it, meaning you can go knock on their door, or you can call them and talk to them on the phone. And I'm going to give you two different ways of approaching it that way, too. Whether it's in person or on the phone, is those are the two ways. But now contained within each of those is two ways. They're really the same. But you've got two different ways of approaching it, is what I have learned. And here's what I have found, is you have got to approach it either as really, really aggressive, as and pushy is maybe even, or what, pushy is not probably the right word. You might perceive it as pushy, but you've got to really be aggressively going after it, or you have to take a really laid back approach. And here's what I'll tell you. Taking the more laid back approach can work, but I will tell you, you're going to miss out on a lot because of the people who are a little bit more aggressive on it. Same thing with the expired listings. And what I mean by that, somebody had asked earlier, I don't remember who it was, but earlier today, somebody asked about when you could call. And I told you that these expired listings, the agents who are doing a ton of expired listings will actually start calling at 6:45 a.m. They're on the phone calling at 6:45 a.m. saying, hey, I noticed your home came up on the computer as an expired listing, and I wanted to see if I could meet with you to talk to you about getting your home sold. The reason they start that early is because there is so much competition on it. Now, when I say that, when I say so much competition, it's not as much as everyone thinks. Like, meaning agents tend to think that there's 50 people calling. And even the for sale by owner or the expired listing will tell you, you're like the 50th agent to call, but really you're like the 5th. But they're saying 50th, but it's like probably you're really only the 5th. But agents will start calling them at 6:45 a.m. And the reason being is kind of the early bird gets the worm. Meaning typically on an expired listing, and again, I am not encouraging you to go call the people at 6:45. In fact, the law says as soon as you can call. But the reason people are calling at 6:45 a.m. is because typically they are going to be willing to set X number of appointments to meet with agents. The expired listing is, and if you call at 9 or 10 o'clock in the day, they've already got, I've already got enough appointments. I don't want to meet with anybody else. So that's why people will start earlier, even though you're not supposed to do that. Okay. So let's keep going on the for sale by owner though, and then we'll come back to, I'm going to show you expired, the approach that you should do. On the expired, or for sale by owner, excuse me, whether you're calling them or you're going and knocking on the door, you got two approaches. One is being really aggressive of going after it. The other is being more of a laid back, hey, I'm here to help you and just want to provide you information. The being more aggressive on it tends to get more business than the being a little bit more laid back. You will get for sale by owners if you're laid back, but you also are going to have to follow up with them for a long, long time. And you potentially miss out on the ones who really need to get their home sold. Because believe it or not, there are some people that put their home for sale by owner as a way to get agents to call them because they want an aggressive agent. So sometimes that's what they're looking for, is somebody who's going to really go after it and show that they've got the hustle to want to get a deal. So you're going to have to approach it that way. Now, when you call them on the phone, though, or knock on their door, either way, you've got to use this process that we talked about, which I'm going to throw back up here again, of connect. I'm going to write it a little bit smaller, though. Create value and close. Now, remember, how we're going to connect with them is we've got to use repeating and affirming, and we have to use empathy. And especially with a for sale by owner, you're going to have to use the empathy, and with an expired for sure is empathy. So when you call them and you say, hey, my name's Russ with Century 21, and I noticed you had put your home up for sale by owner, and I was just calling to get an idea of when you were planning to interview agents for the job of selling your home. And then they're going to say, well, I'm not. I'm trying to get it sold by owner. Oh, you're trying to get it sold by owner? Well, good for you. That's awesome. So what made you decide to do it for sale by owner? Well, I didn't want to pay the commission. You don't want to pay the commission? If I were you, I would feel the exact same way. I can see why you would want to do that and save the commission. If I were you, I would as well. Now, am I lying to them if I say if I were you, I would feel the same way? No, because if I was them,
No.
you're kind of cutting in and out, Dan. Couldn't hear you very well. Sorry, I'm not sure what you were saying. All right, so ultimately saying if I were you, I'd feel the same way. That's going to help in this connection of having them feel like you're not trying to make them wrong. I am telling you, there are so many agents out there that get on the phone and want to start immediately telling that seller why they're dumb to try to do it that way. And they'll even start saying stuff.
I just agreed with you.
What's that? I think he said I agree with you. Thank you.
No, no, it's not what he
All
said.
right. So now I lost my train of thought. Where was I?
So many agents get on.
Oh yeah, so many agents get on the phone and they want to tell them why they're an idiot, and they want to say, look at this report, you're going to end up losing all this money. Now, instead, what we want to do is more approach it from the standpoint of, hey, if there was a way that I could help you get the home sold and it actually was going to end up netting you more money than trying to sell it on your own, would it make sense for us to get together? Well, what's the only answer they can truly give for that? Yeah, I mean, technically, who's going to say, well, no, if you could net me more money by me using you, I wouldn't want to talk to you. Now, there are some that are going to say that. No, it wouldn't make sense. And you almost have to go, it wouldn't make sense if I could get you more money, because there are some people who are like, yeah, I hate agents and I'm not using one, so I don't even care if it costs me money. Well, if that's the case, then that's the case. Question? Just stretching. Okay. So ultimately, what we've got to be doing is we want to be approaching it from the standpoint of, I want to come out and take a look at your home and share with you some ideas that I have that would help you get your home sold. Now, let me give you another one on this connection side. One of the other things that you can use that is really good is by saying to the person, hey, looking at your home online, as I'm looking at these pictures, or if you've had them tell you some things about the home, saying, looking at your home online, I'm confused. Why would you want to sell such a beautiful home?
Mm-hmm.
If I say, I'm confused why you would want to sell such a beautiful home, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm telling, wow, look how beautiful your home is. Like, who's going to be rude to you about that? Oh, don't tell me my house is nice. Like, they're not going to do that. Instead, oh, well, thanks. Yeah. Well, the reason that, so part of what I would say is when you're asking them why they decided to sell the home, see, most agents just approach it of, hey, so why did you decide to sell this home? And they're not going to be as engaging as if you do this connect piece, which is saying, hey, I was looking at your pictures online and I'm a little confused. Why would you want to sell such a beautiful home? Well, now all of a sudden they already like you a little bit because you're telling them how beautiful their home is.
Right.
See, one of the things that I love that Rick Bentley says all the time is, how do you tell a mother that her baby's ugly? There we go. See, Sunshine, you got to leave your mic on the whole time so that at least nobody else laughed, but I got one from you, so thanks.
Hey, I smiled.
Oh, that's true. Just one smile. All right. But how do you tell? So answer me the question. How do you tell a mother that her baby's ugly?
You don't.
Thank you. You don't. So do you want to call somebody and tell them that her house is horrible too, which is what agents do. You don't want to do that. Okay. So part of what we want to do is we want to call and just ask, hey, so Dan, you were asking this yesterday and we were talking about how do you approach somebody? Well, part of how you approach somebody is if you're over the phone, get them to, hey, I was calling about your home for sale. I work with a lot of buyers in the area and I wanted to find out about your home. Tell me about your home. They will a lot of times say, well, how did you see that it was for sale? I either saw the sign out front or I saw it online. When you say I saw it online, they're going to go, well, can't you see the pictures? And I would say, yeah, I can see the pictures and it looks great. And then that's when I would say, in fact, I was a little bit confused of why you would want to sell such a beautiful home. In the event you can get them to share with you about the home, or Dan, let's say you go out to the house and you knock on the door and they are there talking to them, I would say, hey, would you mind showing me around and let me taking a look at it, because I work with a lot of buyers and sellers. Now, as you're walking through the home, as long as it is nice, now if it's a dog, don't say, why would you want to sell such a beautiful home? But if you say to them while you're there looking at it, or that you're on the phone and they are talking to you about it and telling you about the home, you would want to go, wow, so what kind of upgrades have you done to the home? And then they're going to tell you about the upgrades. God, I'm confused. Why would you want to sell such a beautiful home? Now, by me saying that to them as a compliment to them, to the house. But then what are they going to tell me after I say, why would you want to sell such a beautiful home?
What their plans are.
That's right. Essentially, what they're going to tell me is why they now decided to sell the home versus approaching it the way most agents approach it, which is just, hey, so when are you going to interview agents?
Right.
They're going to be kind of like, not really interested in talking to you versus if I say, so help me understand, why would you sell such a beautiful home? They're usually going to tell you the truth. Well, we got a job transfer, or that, you know, I lost my job, like whatever it is, they're going to tell you what the reasoning is, which is why do we want to know what that is?
How motivated they are.
That's right. It's going to help me to learn and understand how motivated they are of what's causing them to sell the home. And here's the thing. The more that the motivation is there, the more I want that listing. If it's somebody that just says, oh, we just decided we would sell it, and if it sells, great. If it doesn't sell, that's okay too. Now, here's the thing though. Keep in mind, and this is what I'm going to give you now is a principle for all prospecting. We're talking about it in terms of for sale by owners, but it applies to all prospecting, and that is this. Their job is to get off of the phone with you. Everything that they are trying to do, if you're knocking on their door or you're on the phone, their job is to get off the phone. What's your job?
To stay on the phone.
No. Make it.
To close and make an appointment.
Yes. Good. See, finally, I'm getting through to you guys. Your job is to get an appointment. Their job is to
Get
you off the phone. And here's the thing. They'll say whatever they have learned. See, they learn their scripts really well too, especially a for sale by owner. They get enough calls with agents that they try different ways of getting the agents off the phone. And once they start to find one or two that work, they'll continue to use it. And so here's what I'm saying. They will lie to you about why they're selling their home to get you off the phone. If they have learned when I can show the agent that I'm not that serious about it, they leave me alone, then they're going to do that. So don't always trust if they say, oh, we're just trying it. If we don't sell it, we won't sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are times when that is true, but I'll tell you what I have found with that. In terms of the ones that's true, they usually are doing zero marketing, meaning there's a sign in their front yard, but they do no other marketing, is what I have found. When that's the case, so part of what I would ask as a question, remember I said part of how you're going to get a connection is asking questions. What you want to ask them is, one of the questions to ask is, so what type of marketing are you doing to get your home sold? And if they say, well, we just threw a sign out front, there's probably not a whole lot of motivation there. If they said, I put a sign out front and we put it on Zillow and we put it on social media and shared it to all of our friends, and that, like, the more that they have done, the more likely it is that they've got the motivation to getting the property sold as well. Now, occasionally just throwing a sign out might be a way of attracting agents, but typically that's not. So
is there a local resource for sale by owners to like post their home somewhere, kind of like the MLS, but for people?
Yeah, so good question. So for the agents here in Utah, is KSL.com.
Oh, really?
KSL is probably the best resource for that. Now, with that being said, and this applies to both California and Utah, what I'm about to say now. For an agent, probably the best resource is there are systems, one called the Red X, that you pay for it.
Okay.
It's a paid thing, but they will provide to you every day. Here's the for sale by owners and the expireds from the day before. Versus if you go to KSL.com, you got to go search it. And
so there's a whole section on KSL for sale by owners.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And for you guys in California, it's probably Craigslist, right? It's probably the spot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
no, sadly that is like where a lot of people post the for sale by owners.
Yeah. Perfect. So that's for in California, Craigslist. For whatever reason, in Utah, people tend to go to a local website called KSL, which is kind of a Craigslist type of a thing, but it's just local. All right.
There's an actual website for sale by owner.com.
Yeah, so there are a few other ones. There's one called owners.com. There's for sale by owner.com. There's some of those that you can find them as well. And Zillow, like I said, Zillow, you can go on and find for sale by owners there as well. So those are the different avenues you can find to get it. But here's the key thing is keep in mind, you've got to call You've got to ask enough questions to create the connection, and then you can create value. So like I said, the way I'm going to give you some ideas on how to create value with them. So one of the ways to create value with a for sale by owner for you to get an appointment is you've got to be asking a question that then they don't know the answer to, or that leads them to believe you have some information that could help them. And so some of the things that I would tell you to use, which we talked about, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but with a for sale by owner, one of them is, hey, just curious, what market are you marketing your home for? And then they're typically going to say to you, KSL, Craigslist, or Zillow, and you go, oh, no, sorry, that's not what I meant. What I meant is, are you marketing your home for FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Jenny Mac, Big Mac? Like, where are you advertising your home? There we go. Thanks, Dan. So you're going to ask those type of questions. Typically, what do you think their response to that is going to be?
A big pause because they don't know.
They're probably
Big
like,
Mac.
yeah, Big Mac.
Big Mac.
They're probably going to say, I guess any of those. Well, so ideally, that's kind of where I'm now. Notice, hopefully, I'm creating some value or some curiosity out of them. They're like, well, I don't really know what you mean by that. So let me give you the other one that you can use that will create some curiosity. Oh, let me back up. Let me finish first. So I say to them, so no, I meant what markets, like FHA, VA, Freddie Mac, Jenny Mac, Penny Mae, Big Mac, whatever, all those kinds of things. Where are you advertising the property? They say, well, I'm not sure what you mean. That's the very reason that you and I need to get together. And so this is the way I'm going to close. That's the very reason you and I need to get together, is so that I can walk you through and talk to you about the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. Now, what would work better for you, afternoons or evenings? Okay. Now,
So,
let me, go ahead.
What would happen in that case if they still just turn around and they just flat out say, nope, I'm not interested, or get off the phone, et cetera, et cetera?
Excellent question. Let me show you this. So thank you for asking that, because now I'm going to show you this. So this is a figure 8 here, poorly drawn, but figure 8 here looks like sunglasses more. Sunglasses here. All right, yeah, it's horrible. I'm sorry. All right, this is my figure 8, poorly drawn, but think of it this way. So to answer your question, remember I said up here, we're going to connect by asking questions. So we want to ask a question, ask a question, ask a question, ask a question. And then right here at this figure 8, yeah, I got to fix it. Sorry. I should have one of you guys come draw it for me, because then maybe it would. That's still not very good. But
Just do a vertical.
I probably should, huh? All right, I'll do it this way.
Circles.
How's that? That's better. All right. So think of it as, I don't know why I was turning it sideways, but all right, here's your figure 8. What you're going to do is every time you get to this spot, you're going to ask for an appointment. So what you've got to do, when you say that, what if they just say no, then I've got to ask another question, ask another question, ask another question, and try to close. If they say no, I'm going to ask another question, ask another question, ask another question, ask a question, close. Ask a question, ask a question, ask a question, close. You're going to ask 3 or 4 questions and then close. So if I said that and they said, yeah, no, we don't really want to meet. Okay, great. Well, so let me ask you, have you updated the kitchen? Yeah, we did, or no, we didn't. Is there a pool in the backyard? No, there's no pool, or there is a pool. Like whatever, you're just going to ask a few more questions. So I'm going to ask a few more questions, but then I'm going to go to one again that I'm going to hopefully create value or curiosity. So here's the next one I'm going to ask them. Is I'm going to say to that for sale by owner, well, hey, let me ask you this. Have you considered how you could use points as a way of leveraging any offers that you get? How do you think they're going to respond when I use that one? Have you considered how you're going to use points to leverage an offer when you get it? How many of you even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, okay. When's the class on that, Russ?
Say that again, Dan.
What's that?
I say that again. I missed what you said.
I said, when's the class on that?
Right?
It's
I think those are something to do with loans, right? Or rates?
Perfect. Yeah. So I'll give you the abbreviated version of it, just so that you'll know what you would do with them if you go talk to them. Because I'm telling you, that one they're not going to have an answer for. When you say, have you considered how you could use points as a way to leverage your offer? So it's called point leveraging. Now, let me explain to you that not always is it going to work. And in fact, it's very possible, it's more likely to work though in today's market than ever. But it is also not always going to work. But again, part of all I'm trying to get is an appointment, and I want to create the curiosity or a value for them. So I'm going to ask them, have you considered how you're going to use points as a way to leverage an offer when you get one in to net you more money? And they're going to say, if they say yes, you're going to go, really? You have considered that? So share with me who shared that. How did you learn that? Because I've found many people that don't know it. They're probably going to go, well, I don't even know what you're talking about, actually. Perfect. That's the very reason we need to get together. So here's what it is. What happens is this, and it's not happening as much now, I think, in California as it does in Utah, but still you can use this as a way of getting an appointment. So it doesn't really matter because, again, you're probably not going to end up doing it very often, but we do have times when we do it. So that's why I think it's okay to say it, because there are times that it could work out for them, but there are also times that it's not. But I'm just trying to get an appointment, right? So I say to them, have you considered how you're going to use points as a way to leveraging offers when you get it so that you can net more money? They're going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's the very reason we need to get together. Now, what works better, afternoons or evenings? Right. And from there, basically what it is, if I get the appointment to go out and talk to them, what I'm going to say to them is, when we get an offer in, if the buyer is asking for the seller to pay some closing costs or make some concessions for them on the offer, what we want to do is go back and talk to their lender and get the lender to actually bump the interest rate up. And typically they're going to have to bump it about 0.5%. So they're going to bump the interest rate up 0.5%. The lender is now going to pay the closing costs on behalf of the buyer. So actually, let me tell you how you would use this in California, because even if they're not asking you to pay closing costs, we could still use it as a way to get them to pay us a little bit more on the home, because it'll be less out of pocket for the buyer. So we have them bump the interest rate up where this lender pays the closing costs for the buyer. Then that way, that it's less money out of pocket for the buyer. The seller's not having to bring money out of their pocket. And then what happens then is the lender can then 3-6 months down the road go refinance the home to reduce the interest rate back down, and everybody comes out smelling like a rose. Now, again, like I said, not always going to work, but it's a good excuse to get an appointment to go in and show them there's some value in talking to you.
Right.
That makes sense.
Now, Russ, let me ask you a question while I got service. Is there a point where you get so many no's that it's time to just cut the call off?
Yeah. Usually what I say is this. Hopefully you can see me on the screen. You're looking for one of two fingers. Either this one, so this one, or I'll let you figure out what the other one is. Hey, I got actual laughs on that one. Sweet. I'm getting better. So yeah, ultimately, yes, Dan, as soon as you get that finger, you're done. Yeah, or they hang up or whatever. So, but ultimately, here's what I would say is, to some extent, yes, you're going to try to keep asking questions and keeping them on the phone. And so ultimately, sometimes you even just have to say, man, your house just sounds so beautiful. Like, I just want to come and take a look at it. And so let me give you another one that you can use when they're saying no, 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 is use this as another one. So, hey, Dan, you know what, actually, I just was looking at my schedule. I'm actually going to be just down the street from your house tomorrow at around 3 o'clock. Would it be okay if I just drop by either right before or after my 3 o'clock appointment?
Okay.
They're more likely to say yes to you when you do that. When you go, you know what, I'm actually just going to be down the street anyway. And the reason I'm going to be just down the street is because I want to see their house. But I'm just going to be down the street. at another appointment right before, and maybe that down the street is McDonald's or something, I don't know. But I'm gonna be just down the street before you're at 3 o'clock. Would it be okay if I just drop by before or after that? And a lot of times they'll go, yeah, that's fine, but I'm not gonna list with you. That's fine. I'm not gonna ask you to list with me. If I do, I give you permission to kick me or whatever. I just wanna come out and share with you some ideas that I have that could net you more money. See, if you can get that appointment now, you can really get a chance to build some rapport. All right.
Okay. Yeah, so just no choice from the beginning. Perfect.
Exactly. You don't get a choice. And in fact, if you guys watched last Thursday, Brian Burnett, when he did the role play with George, that's exactly what he did. It wasn't exact, but he just said, I'm going to stop by at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Okay? And George was kind of like, oh, okay. So yeah, to some extent, that's what I was saying. With the for sale by owners, you got to be a little more aggressive of, hey, I'm going to be out in the area. I'm just going to stop by and take a look at it. That way, if I get a buyer that's interested, they would know about it. But hey, since I'm going to be there anyway, let me just spend 10, 15 minutes sharing with you what I do to get a home sold. And I'll share with you how you could use point leveraging as a way to net more money.
Perfect.
Yeah, do you have a contract already?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You want to have a contract ready because when I get there, they might say, well, hey, let's just go ahead and get the home listed. So if I said to them, I'm not going to ask you to list, then I'm going to honor that. But when I'm there, they might ask me, which I'm okay with as well. All right. Questions on for sale by owner. We're going to go into expireds next then, if not. All right. Let me get rid of my horrible drawing here. All right. Next is expireds. On expireds, you got two approaches with those. Knock on the door, call them on the phone. Here's the challenge with calling them on the phone. When you try to call an expired on the phone, it's hard to find a phone number in today's world. It can be very difficult to come up with a phone number on an expired. So as a result of that, if you can find one, great. Even if you subscribe to the Red X, the phone numbers are wrong probably 50 to 70% of the time. It's a wrong phone number. So you're going to not typically get a phone number. So I'm going to give to you, I'm going to spend more time. The process, if you do get them on the phone, is going to be similar to a for sale by owner, meaning I noticed your home came up on the market as an expired listing, and I was calling to see when you're going to be talking to agents about getting your home sold. We're not. Okay, you're not going to. That's great. Well, you know, why? If you had sold the home, where were you going to go next? And they'll say wherever they were going to go. And then I may even say on the phone, the one I like to use with them when they say they're not going to sell it, I like to say, well, would it create a problem for you if I had a buyer that could close in the next 30 days? And if they say no to that, then you know they're still thinking of selling. If they said, yeah, that would create a problem because my home, that I wouldn't have anywhere to go or something, then you know you're going to have a better idea. Okay, so phone is going to be pretty similar. You're just going to come up with something that, hey, would it create a problem if I had a buyer that could close for you in the next 30 days? Now, here's how I recommend doing the expireds. And some of you guys might say, should I still do this with COVID? And my answer is yes, you should still do it. So assume this is the house. For me, expired listings, how you want to do it is approach it this way. You want to identify that either an area that you're going to work expires. So pick an area, and here's what I recommend is one of three things. Either close to your office, close to your home that you live in, or pick an area that you want to get listings in, and then go map it out somehow where that area is that you want to be, and then go on the MLS and do a search in that area for all the homes that have expired. And I would do it to start with during the last year. How many have expired in this area in the last year? Now, sometimes people will say, how big of an area? And here's how you're going to decide that. Figure out how many properties you want to work, and then that's going to decide how big the area is. The other way you're going to figure out is if you feel like you're traveling all over town to get to these, it's too big of an area. So just, there's not a right or a wrong of what size it is. It's whatever feels right to you, but you don't want it to be like, at one point I did all of Salt Lake County, and then I would go and drive around, and it took me the whole day to go knock on 10 doors. That's and talk to one person. Not worth it. Instead, pick a smaller area and go back 1 year, find all the properties that have expired in the last year, and then what you want to do is make sure they haven't relisted. So you're going to check the MLS, making sure they didn't relist. And as long as they have not relisted, keep that one to go knock on the doors. Then what you're going to do is jump in your car and you're going to go knock on the door. The reason you want it to be a smaller area, you don't want to be driving all over town, is because I'm going to continue to go knocking on these doors. So here's what you want to do. So you've identified these areas. And in fact, one of our agents that's with the company, his name is Brian Noel, and he has two sources of business that he works, his sphere of influence, and he works expireds. And I'm going to teach you the way that he does expireds. And let me tell you, this year, he has made more money this year than he did all of last year already. And last year, he was somewhere, I don't know exact, but between $400,000 and $500,000 a year. He has made more than that this year. And his sole way of he prospects is his sphere of influence and what I'm about to share with you. He's identified an area that's fairly close to the office that we're in right now. And then he goes and he pulls the expired for the last year he did. And then since then, going forward then, once you've pulled them for the last year, you're going to then just continue to do it every day going forward. And so what he does is this. So I'm going to go out in this area, and let's say I've got one here, I've got one here, and one over here, and maybe there's one over here, and two over here, whatever, okay? So you're going to find these in these areas. Then what you're going to do is you're going to drive up to the first house. You're going to get out of your car, you're going to go up and you're going to knock on the door. And when you knock on the door, what do you think is going to happen?
They're not going to answer.
Exactly. That's typically what's going to happen, is they're not going to answer. Now, you hope they answer, but just plan on most of the time. Remember I told you, I did this at one point where I did it in too big of an area, and I had 10 properties, and I went out and spent the entire day going and knocking on these doors, and I talked to one person. So 1 out of the 10 opened the door. And that one that opened the door said, oh yeah, we had a job transfer and it fell through, so we're not moving now. So it was a waste. So instead of that, what you're going to do is this. And I didn't do this at first. This is how you want to do it. This is the smart way. So I get out of the car and I go knock on the door. They don't answer. Now I'll talk to you about what to do if they do. But if they don't answer, then I'm going to go to the next door neighbor and knock on their door. Now let me show you what this is going to look like. Because I'm going to do 3 to 5 doors this direction from their house. And I'm going to do 3 to 5 doors this direction from their house. And then you're going to cross the street and do 6 to 10 doors this way. So because I'm already out there anyway, I'm going to knock on a few other doors. But watch what I'm going to do. So let's say that I knocked on Chris, your neighbor's door. I'm trying to get a hold of your neighbor. I go to their house. I knock on it. They're not there. So I leave and I go to the next door neighbor, which happens to be Chris. Now watch what I'm going to do. Knock, knock. Apparently he's not home either. Hi, my name is Russ Orchard. I'm with Century 21. Now, what's probably going on in his mind as soon as I start with, hi, my name is Russ. I'm with Century 21. Yeah, I'm not interested in buying or what, like, is what you're thinking, right? Yeah, I don't want any of that, okay? Good news is when you say Century 21, people know. But, okay. So I knock on his door and he answers and I say, my name's Russ, I'm with Century 21. I'm actually not here to try to get you to buy or sell a house. I really actually wanted to talk to your next door neighbor, but they weren't home. Do you know when the best time to catch them at home is?
Home at night, about 5 o'clock.
So usually around 5 o'clock at night. Now, okay, so pause for a minute. As soon as I knock on the door, his immediate thought is I'm there to try to get him to buy something, is what he's thinking. But as soon as I say, I'm actually not here to talk to you. I was trying to get a hold of your neighbor. I knocked on the door, but they weren't home. When's the best time to catch them home? As soon as I do that, his guard drops. He relaxes. He's not now trying to get rid of me anymore because I'm not there to try to sell him anything. So now he's going to say, oh, probably 5 or 6 o'clock at night. Or some people will go, well, I'm not telling you. Or, you know, they may not say that, but they're thinking, I'm not going to tell you. And they, well, why? Why do you need my neighbor? Is what they may say. So then if he says that, if he tells me 5 or 6, great. If he says, well, why? What do you need him for? I'm going to say, oh, thanks. Yeah, sorry. I actually work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area. And I know there's a lot of interest in people buying homes here. And I noticed they had their home up for sale like 6 months ago. Do you know if they're still interested in selling it?
I think they took it off the market for some reason, but I don't know why.
So they took it off but for some reason, but you're not sure why. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate you telling me that, because like I said, we've got a lot of buyers in the area right now, and I just wanted to see if they're still interested in selling. So do you happen to have a phone number that I could call them on, or you know, just whatever the best way to get a hold of them is?
Ooh, I don't know if I want to give that out.
Okay, hey, totally. Now look, watch what I do. If I were you, I'd feel the same way. I wouldn't want to give it to some random guy either. So no problem. But you think if I came back around 5, I'd be able to catch him at home?
Probably so.
Okay, perfect. Well, hey, since I got you here, let me ask you, any interest in buying or selling?
Not at this time. I think we're happy.
You're happy. Okay, cool. So how long have you lived here then?
Like 18 years.
Really? You've been 18 years? God, that's great. Where'd you move from?
Just north of Salt Lake.
Somewhere just north of here. Okay. Was it in Layton? No, I didn't even get his attention. The conversation that we were having. We were having a conversation about Layton, but you know, everybody here says Layton. Yeah. I know California, you guys are like, what are you talking about? But it's a Utah thing. All right. So just north of here.
Murray, actually.
Oh, you lived in Murray. Okay, great. So what brought you here?
Just like the house.
Just
So
like the
I
house.
saw the house, thought it was nice.
Awesome.
To find it.
Well, cool. Well, hey, let me just ask you, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
It's so funny we're having this conversation right now because I'm going through this at my house right now with my wife.
Oh, really? See, now look at what's happening. All of a sudden, he went from he's not thinking of selling to that they are.
Yeah, we're actually, my wife wants to move and all that stuff right now. So anyway, yeah, so it's funny you're asking me all these questions.
Yeah, good. See, now, is he somebody I would want to add to my list of select group of people? Absolutely. See, that's why you're going to go to the neighbor. Is first off, I'm asking because I want to, here's the thing. Think of it this way. If I knock on his neighbor's door and they answer, it's pretty likely that they're going to tell me, oh, no, we're not selling. We decided, especially if it's been 6 months or a year, they're going to go, yeah, we decided not to sell. Maybe not. But here's my point. Even if it just expired yesterday, they're going to say, yeah, we decided not to. We're just going to wait. They're going to tell me whatever they have to tell me to get me off the doorstep. But if I go to the next door neighbor, the next door neighbor wants to be helpful. When you tell them, hey, we've got a buyer for the house, they want to be helpful. They almost want to be the person to be able to go to the neighbor and say, hey, I found a buyer for you. So they're usually going to tell you the truth. No, yeah, they're still thinking of selling. Or he may say, no, they decided not to because whatever, their job transfer fell through. Like, I feel like you're going to get more of the truth from the neighbor, but you also have some that are like, I'm not telling you. Okay, appreciate it. See you later. That's why I then go to the next door neighbor. Hi, Bernadette. My name's Russ with Century 21. I actually am not here to try to get you to buy or sell anything. I'm just trying to get a hold of your neighbor 2 doors down. We work with a lot of buyers, and I know they had their home for sale at one point. Do you know if they're still wanting to sell?
I don't know. I don't normally talk to them.
Oh, you don't? Okay. You got to be a better neighbor. No, just kidding. Don't do that. Don't say it.
They're really private.
Exactly. They're really private.
Really
Okay.
private. They don't like people coming to their door. They have no soliciting.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hey, do you know when the best time that I could catch them at home is? Because I noticed they had it for sale, and the market, there's so low inventory right now. If they were interested, we could get it sold right away. So.
I'm not really sure what they do, but their hours fluctuate.
Do they? Okay. So kind of it's hit and miss.
Yeah, it's it.
Okay, great. Well, hey, let me ask you, how long have you lived here?
13 years.
Wow. And then I'm going to go 13 years. Wow, good for you. Where did you move from? And then she's going to tell me, oh, wow, that's exciting. What brought you here? And then she's going to tell me, and I'm going to then go, well, hey, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
I don't plan on moving.
No plans to move. Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the info. I'll keep trying to see if I can get a hold of them and see if we can help them get the home sold. Talk to you later. Then I'm going to go to the next door neighbor. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, my name is Russ. I'm trying to get a hold of your neighbor. Now, the further away you get from the house, the less likely that they are going to know. But that's why I'm going to then cross the street. Now, part of what I'm doing, though, is I'm using this as an excuse to, since I'm already in the area, to talk to some other people. And it's a way of doing kind of a just listed or some just door knocking in a way that hopefully gives you information. Now, what if I did this? What if I knocked on the door and they said to me, yeah, actually, I was just talking to them last night of saying, they were saying in the next month, they're going to put their home back on the market.
Bingo.
Yeah, all of a sudden now I'm like, I got to get a hold of these people. And now I'm really like, okay, I have got to get back to that house, and ASAP, I'm going to go get to that house. See, that's why you do it this way, is because the neighbors will tell you stuff that they might, meaning if you knocked on their door, they might not say, oh yeah, we're going to put it on the market in the next month. But again, the neighbor's like, oh yeah, no, they were actually just telling me last night they got to put it back on the market again next month or whatever. Like, you can get good information this way by doing it and hitting on these that way. The other thing you're going to figure out is, do I want to go back to that or not? Because like I said, if I talk to enough of the neighbors and enough of the neighbors are like, oh yeah, they had a job transfer, they were going to build a new house, but it fell through and, you know, he lost his job, whatever. Like, I may or may not want to go back, but you're going to find out information that will tell you. So let's see, Jordan says, give all of them your business card to pass on to the neighbor. Yeah, absolutely. You could do that as well. Typically, I don't necessarily say, here's my card, give it to the neighbor. Now, if they were saying that they have to list it, I probably would, especially if they said they're kind of hit and miss and hard to get a hold of. I probably would. More so, though, I want to go knock on the door and talk to them. All right? Okay, let's see. Oh, what do you do if they answer the door? If they answer the door. So if Chris answers the door and he's the expired, I'm going to say, hey, my name is Russ with Century 21. I noticed you had your home on the market about 6 months ago, or 3 months ago, 2 months ago, last week, a year ago, whatever it is. The market is crazy busy right now. In fact, there's not enough inventory, multiple offers on homes. I just wanted to see if you could get your home sold in the next 30 days, would it create a problem for you?
No, let's do it.
Yeah, if they said no, great. Then, yeah, that was too easy. But if they're like, well, we don't know, we considered, we're not sure if we want to or not, totally understand. If I were you, I'd feel the exact same way. See, with the expired, you're going to use that empathy a lot more. If I were you, I'd feel the exact same way that you do. Now, then I'm going to go move into, well, hey, what we ought to do is sit down and talk about it, because I think you could get the home sold. Now, let me ask you guys a question real quick, though. Why does an expired, why did it not sell typically?
Price too high.
Overpriced.
That's right. It's typically overpriced. Now, if that's the case, and especially if one from a year ago, the market's been hot enough, that price might work now. So I would just say, hey, market's gone crazy, multiple offers out there, we could potentially get your home sold. We should talk about it. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to explain this in my head. So if I say to the seller or the homeowner, so would it create a problem if I can get your home sold within a month? So now, of course, they agree. Oh yeah, that would be great. But how do I transition to saying, okay, I want to list your house? That's where I'm kind of.
Okay, so well, let's role play it then.
Okay.
So did you guys online hear? Can you hear her well enough?
Not really.
Okay, slide forward in your chair closer to the mic here so that we can role play it.
Okay.
So or just talk louder will help too.
Okay.
All right, so what she asked is how does she transition it? So we're gonna role play it. All right. So would it create a problem? So I've knocked on the door, we're talking, hey, would it create a problem for you if you're able to get the home sold in the next 30 days?
Oh yes, that would be great.
No, it would be good.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, so here's what we need to do then is, would you have some time that we could sit down and talk about what that would look like for you?
Sure.
So what works better, afternoons or evenings?
Oh, in the afternoon.
Okay, afternoon at 3 or 4?
4 o'clock.
Okay, 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
Great, we'll come back. So I come back. All right, so hey, ultimately, tell me what you're wanting to accomplish in getting your home sold.
Well, I like to sell it so I can go closer to my kids.
Okay, so you want to be closer to your kids, and in the next 30 days, it sounded like would probably not be a problem, it'd be a good thing. Okay, cool. Well, so how quickly do you want to get it sold?
You said within a month.
Okay, and that you want to do it?
Yes.
Okay, great. When do you want to get it put on the market? Would today be better or tomorrow?
Oh, I thought you had a buyer. that you might have a buyer.
Oh, yeah, we might. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, until we show it to them, I don't know for sure, so I can't say that. But in order for me to do that, I actually need to get the property on the market.
Oh, I understand. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we can meet tomorrow then.
Okay, great. So then I would meet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So essentially, I'm just going to go from, hey, would it create a problem for you if you got your home sold? And so I see what you were asking is their assumption is I've got the buyer for the house right now.
And then I just wanted to make sure that they're not feeling like I'm trying to trick them.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, cool.
I used to get that too. It seems like I would get marketed at by people, and they would say, "I have a buyer for your home." Kind of, they would use that terminology.
Okay, good. So yeah, so let me clarify something that here's, and I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but here's how I'm saying. We may have a buyer, or we work with a lot of buyers. This area is hot right now for buyers. So you want to be careful. And maybe I did slip and say I have one. And if I did, I apologize. But I always want to approach it as, hey, we work with a lot of buyers in the area, meaning our company. And it is true that we do. I don't care what area it is. We work with a lot of buyers in that area. So I always want to do it as we work with a lot of buyers. And yes, they may interpret it as you're saying you have a buyer for the house, but don't say it that way. You want to say it as, hey, we work with a lot of buyers. Would it create a problem for you if you got your home sold in the next 30 days? Because here's the thing. In their current environment, if they will list it at a price that is reasonable, it'll be sold in the next 30 days. So you're not asking them anything crazy by saying, would it create a problem for you if your home sold in the next 30 days? Well, no. Okay, well, we work with a lot of buyers in the area, and there's a lot of interest in this area right now. If you could get it sold, would you be interested in doing that? Well, yeah, great. Let's talk about it then. Make sense?
Yeah, that's better. It sounds more honest.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. All right, what other questions?
Oh, so
Yes.
as I was asking about the expires this morning, so I'm finding a lot of the expires would say expired. No, it would say off the market and then expired. And it would sometimes be 6 months off the market and then
Okay,
expired.
good. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys heard the question. I'll repeat it. She's asking on the MLS, it showed off the market and then went to expired, but it was off the market for a long time first, which this is not going to apply, I don't think, to you guys in California, what she's asking, because it's MLS specific for ours, I think. But if somebody puts it, the status to off market, what it means is they still have a listing agreement in place, but they're just not selling the home. So an example of that would be, let's say that somebody listed their house with me, we signed a 6-month listing agreement, but then 2 months into it or 3 months into it, their job fell apart. Like, hey, we were going to transfer you, but now with COVID, we're not transferring you anymore. So they call me and say, hey, we need to take our home off the market. We're not selling it anymore. Well, I still want that contract to still be in place so that if they do decide to sell in the next 6 months or 3 more months, whatever it is that's left in the contract, that they're going to use me. So I'm going to do it as off market versus expired, because off market means I still have a contract on it. The contract we're just not trying to sell the home anymore. So when you see it then change from off market to expired, which is what you're talking about, means that the actual contract itself is up now.
Is it still
Here in California, it's called on hold.
On hold. Okay, good. So it's same concept.
so what's the difference between withdrawn and off the market?
Withdrawn means that they canceled the contract.
Canceled.
Okay.
And there's conditional and unconditional.
Well, the unconditional is withdrawn. The conditional is off market.
Okay. So is it still good to call those people?
Which one?
Both.
Yes. Well, off market, don't call, or off market or on hold for California, don't call, because they still have a valid contract that's in place.
Unless it says expired.
If it says expired, you're good, or withdrawn. All right. What other question? All right. Well,
Russ, you may not know the answer to this question, but here in California on the MLS, the status change date is the same as the withdrawn date or the canceled date, right?
yeah, I don't know that.
All right, no worries.
But I know a good person you could ask who would.
So do I.
It's his mom. His mom. All right. Good. What other questions? Okay. So we hit on the for sale by owner and expired. As far as like a just listed, really the process is going to be ultimately you're just still trying to connect, create value, and close. So on a just listed or a just sold, you're going to knock on the door, hey, we just listed your neighbor's home, or we just sold your neighbor's home. And what we know is that if it's a just sold, I'm going to say we know that when a home sells in an area, usually 2 or 3 will come on the market and sell right away. So I just want to see when you plan on selling your home. We don't. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing you've heard me say already 100 times. Well, how long have you lived here? We lived here for 5 years. 5 years? Wow, that's great. Where did you move from? How did you pick this area? Well, if you were to move, where would you go next? And remember, this is that prospecting on parallel tracks where I'm looking for now and future. And part of that future is I'm trying to plant a seed by saying, well, if you ever were to move, where would you go next? Another one that I haven't said that I will use as questions is, if you could change anything about your neighborhood, what would it be? Or your area, what would it be? Because that's going to give you some of their pain. So, or a question, if you could change anything about your home, what would you change? That's giving you kind of what the pain is for them. Of, well, I hate my neighbor, or I hate the stairs that my house has, and I would want a 1 level. Something like that is what you're looking for. Is so, hey, what if you could change anything about the neighborhood, or if you could change anything in your home, what would it be? You can also ask it as, hey, because we've just listed your neighbor's home, tell me the things you love about this area. And the idea of that is to connect, to try to get them talking and sharing with you what they like about the area. And I usually will do that first. Share with me what are some of your favorite things about this neighborhood or your area. And then they'll tell me, and I'll go, okay, well, if you could change anything, what would you change? What should I be aware of that are the negatives? And part of that negatives is them then you figuring out what the pain is for them. What are the things they don't like about it? Well, hey, if you could change that by getting into a new home, is that something you would want to do? So I'm just going to be asking questions of it and trying to either get an appointment through the now business or get them as a lead that I can add to my database for future business. Make sense? All right. Anybody else tired as I am? 3 days in a row.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 3 days of me standing up here teaching. I'm tired. So anyway. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up then for today, unless you guys have other questions.
No, you can
Russ.
take off early. Bro.
I can take, I'm not going home early. I'm just going to be done training.
What's on the agenda for
Just
tomorrow?
kidding.
Say that again.
What's on the agenda for tomorrow?
Oh, good. Yeah, great question. So today was all about getting appointments, essentially. Tomorrow's now that I got an appointment, what do I do with it? So tomorrow's class is needs analysis. We're going to talk about, now that you got the appointment, what do you do with it? So I'm going to teach you, we're going to walk through with the buyer and the seller, although we're going to do more buyer tomorrow, and the whole day is going to be that, and it's enough information. But then on Friday morning, we're going to do the listing side. How do I do a listing presentation? So that's what tomorrow looks like.
Are there 2 classes tomorrow?
2 classes tomorrow, only 1 on Friday.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Jordan, nothing Friday afternoon. Friday afternoon is when I'm leaving early, Dan, like you said.
Hey, you're welcome to it, buddy.
All right, thanks. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you in the morning, and we'll get into the needs analysis. And I will tell you, the stuff we're going to work on tomorrow actually is a skill you can use in all of your life, not just real estate. So,
Thank you so much, Rob.
Hey, Russ, can you email me the link from the live video today?
yeah, absolutely. You want this one? Is that the one you're thinking? Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, because my connection kept cutting in and
Gotcha.
out.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good. All right, guys. 10 o'clock,
Thanks.
9 o'clock California time, 10 o'clock Utah tomorrow. We'll see you in the morning.